Fin Xiao and I went from wearing school uniforms together to walking down the wedding aisle hand in hand. He once knelt in the ancestral hall for me, enduring a brutal beating from his father that left him half dead, yet he still insisted on marrying me. But even the most passionate, earth-shattering love can't stand up to the allure of temptation from the outside world. When he cheated on me for the first time, I lost my mind completely, even attempting to take my own life. After that, I stopped caring about all his flings and affairs, throwing myself headlong into my career, often staying out all night. He would wait for me until dawn, his eyes bloodshot as he confronted me, demanding to know if I still remembered I was a married woman. I'd only respond with impatience. "I'm swamped with work, can't you be a little more reasonable? Senior Song is just my business partner. Is all this suspicion really necessary?" Fin Zhao's face drained of all color in an instant. That night, the luxury cruise ship glided slowly across the dark sea, its lights shining brightly like a floating palace of stars. In the ship's bar, I wore a figure-hugging red mini dress and sky-high heels, catching my breath as I sat down in a booth with my senior. "Wipe the sweat off your brow." The senior smiled, handing me a tissue. We just finished dancing up a storm and right now my body and mind were buzzing with pure, unadulterated joy. "Thanks." I took the tissue, flipping my wavy long hair casually before glancing at the strikingly handsome man across from me. He was dressed in a black dress shirt and tailored trousers. His features were warm and gentle, the kind that screamed proper gentleman. But at this moment the top buttons of his shirt were undone, revealing his elegant collarbones and fair, smooth skin, making him look like a dangerously seductive demon. I was about to tease him with a grin when my phone suddenly vibrated inside my clutch. I glanced at the caller ID, a flicker of impatience I didn't even notice crossing my face. Just before it went to voicemail I answered the call, my tone flat. "What is it?" There was a brief pause on the other end as if the caller hadn't expected me to sound so calm, so cold. My husband Fin Xiao and I had known each other since high school. I was the straight A student, the quiet, bookish one. He was the campus heartthrob, the rebellious bad boy who ruled the school. Thanks to my family's circumstances, I was shy and carried a quiet sense of inferiority. But he was as bright and warm as the morning sun. No matter how hard I tried to avoid him, he'd always find a way to stick to my side, relentless. Even though he was a wealthy young master, the heir to a fortune, he'd show up at my mom's breakfast stall every day just to help out, all to win me over. He'd drive 2 hours round trip just to buy me my favorite snack, simply because I'd mentioned it in passing. And when I tried to push him away, too scared of our different worlds, he'd stand outside my dorm building in the pouring rain all night, refusing to give up, refusing to let me end things between us. Our family backgrounds were worlds apart. He was the crown prince of Haishur while I was just a poor scholarship student. But to marry me, he defied his father and the entire family, standing up to enormous pressure without flinching. Our love story was like a fairy tale come to life. But even fairy tales can't withstand the erosion of time. The circle he moved in was one of luxury and excess, filled with endless temptations around every corner. Once our marriage settled into a comfortable routine, it no longer brought him the thrill and excitement he craved. Eventually he grew bored and started seeking that thrill elsewhere, chasing after other women for a new sense of adventure. He'd hidden it all so well. But women are born with a finely tuned sense of intuition, especially when they're deeply in love. How could I not have noticed the subtle changes in him? I just couldn't bring myself to believe it, that the man who'd once loved me so fiercely, who'd been willing to fight the whole world for me, could ever cheat on me. Until that day. He told me he had to work overtime at the company, that he'd be home late. But I'd snuck over to his office, my heart heavy with a growing sense of dread. I still remember the searing pain and nausea that washed over me when I pushed the door open and saw him pinning his beautiful young secretary down on his desk, their actions shameless, their faces twisted with lust. I, who'd always been so timid and scared of conflict my whole life, had snapped in that moment. I don't even remember how I'd attacked them both, screaming and crying like a madwoman. By the time I came to my senses, I was lying on the cold floor, a sharp, agonizing pain tearing through my lower abdomen. The baby I'd been so eagerly looking forward to, the child I'd dreamed of for so long, was gone. Hit with this double blow, every last bit of my faith and hope crumbled into dust. My mom had passed away not long after Fin Xiao and I got married. Now I truly had nothing left in this world. I'd lost everything. I'd been defeated utterly and completely. 2. I lay in the hospital bed for 3 whole days and Fin Shao never showed up once. It was as if he was punishing me for my hysterical outburst, for my shameful behavior. I'd really wanted to die back then. I'd locked myself in the hospital bathroom and sliced open my wrist with a razor blade. Luckily, a nurse had found me just in time and called Fin Shao. He finally came. But he didn't apologize. He just stared at me, his eyes dark and heavy, before telling me that this was just how things were in his world. If I wanted to keep my position as Mrs. Shao, I'd have to get used to it. I'd have to maintain my dignity, my composure, and stop making a scene. I don't know why I didn't ask for a divorce right then and there. Maybe it was because I was still holding on to that tiny sliver of unwillingness to let go. Or maybe it was because I'd invested too much of myself in this marriage, and the sunk cost was just too great to bear. Even after my body recovered, the darkness in my heart never lifted. And not long after his suicidal wife had been discharged from the hospital, he'd taken his little mistress on an overseas business trip. He probably didn't care whether I lived or died. Or maybe he was trying to break me, to tame me, to teach me a brutal lesson that would force me to submit to him. When disappointment reaches its breaking point, when pain becomes so intense it's unbearable, you really do go numb. I wandered alone along the riverbank in Haishur. During the height of our love, we'd often walk this path together after dinner, hand in hand, talking about our future. Back then we'd had big dreams, big plans. We thought we'd be together forever until we were old and gray. As I stared at the calm, dark river that night, I'd really wanted to jump in. To let the cold water swallow me whole, to end all the pain once and for all. Willow Chin? Is that really you? A warm, gentle male voice suddenly jolted me out of my suicidal thoughts. 3. It wasn't that I was truly unafraid of death. It was just that I had nothing left to live for, nothing to look forward to. Living felt like a meaningless chore. Running into that senior who'd come to Haishur to expand his business had been a complete accident. But it was the best accident that could have ever happened to me. With him inviting me out for meals and tea from time to time, chatting with me about everything under the sun, the dark cloud hanging over my heart had slowly, almost imperceptibly lifted. I no longer wanted to focus all my attention on Fin Shao, devoting my entire life to being his perfect Mrs. Shao. I'd always had a sharp eye for numbers, a natural talent for finance. I'd graduated from a prestigious university with a degree in finance, after all. And even during the years I'd been a housewife, I'd been managing my own investments, playing the markets on the side. Even without Fin Shao's monthly allowance, I was more than capable of supporting myself. I wasn't short on money. When the senior asked me if I wanted to partner with him on a business venture, I'd agreed without a second thought. I didn't care if it was a scam, a pig butchering scheme. I didn't care if I'd end up losing every penny I had. If I'd already been willing to die, what else was there left to lose? Why not give this new life, this new path, a chance? And if the senior had only approached me to use me against Fin Shao, well, that would have made me even happier. As I threw myself into my work, I no longer wallowed in the misery of my failed marriage and broken heart. In the cutthroat world of financial negotiations, every setback and every victory had slowly chipped away at the old me, forging a brand new version of myself from the ashes. By the time I realized it, I hadn't thought about Fin Shao in what felt like an eternity. If I hadn't thrown myself into my career, if I'd stayed cooped up in that house I used to think of as our love nest, I would have gone completely insane a long time ago. Now, looking at Fin Shao's name flashing on my phone screen, I felt a momentary sense of disorientation, like I was looking at a ghost from a past life. Once upon a time, I'd have been desperate to be glued to his side every second of the day. If he'd called me even a little later than usual, I'd have been so anxious I couldn't sit still, my mind racing with all kinds of terrible thoughts. Now, thinking about his betrayal still sent a sharp pang of pain through my heart. But now that pain was mostly overshadowed by a deep, overwhelming sense of disgust. Fin Shao seemed to hear the faint background noise on my end, his tone turning sharp and irritable. "Where the hell are you?" I didn't bother hiding the truth. "I'm on a cruise ship having fun." "A cruise ship? Whose cruise ship? Do you even have friends in Haishur who can afford something like that?" "Yep. Is there anything else you need?" Fin Shao clearly hated my calm, indifferent tone. "Don't you know I'm coming home today?" I really hadn't had a clue. "So, did you forget how to get back home? Do you want me to send you a GPS link?" Fin Shao was left completely speechless, choked by my words. He snapped, his patience clearly wearing thin. How long are you going to keep this up? Haven't you caused enough trouble these past few months? I almost laughed out loud in disbelief. Other than that one night I'd confronted him and his mistress, had I ever actually caused any trouble for him? If you have nothing else to say, I'm hanging up. As soon as the words left my mouth, I realized how ridiculous they were. Why give him a heads up? Why not just hang up right away? I really had been too polite, too easygoing in the past. Willow Chin, how dare you hang up on me? Ignoring Fin Zhao's furious, indignant shout, I ended the call without hesitation, and blocked his number for good. I'd come out tonight to relax, to have a good time. The last thing I needed was for him to ruin my mood. For Senior Liu Song swirled the amber liquid in his wine glass, a faint smile playing on his lips as he asked, "Your husband?" I nodded, my expression completely blank, the word, disgusting, almost slipping out of my mouth. Liu Song suddenly spoke up. Have you never thought about getting a divorce? I looked at him in surprise. Ever since I'd joined his company, he'd taken me under his wing, teaching me everything I needed to know to survive in the cutthroat world of finance. He'd brought me to all kinds of business seminars and networking events, introducing me to countless entrepreneurs, teaching me how to talk, how to navigate tricky situations, how to avoid falling into traps. He'd even taught me social etiquette and how to dress, taking me out to do all sorts of activities in his free time, shooting, horseback riding, swimming, dancing. He'd transformed me from the inside out, helping me shed that timid, inferior shell I'd hidden in for so long. I figured that even if the senior had approached me with an ulterior motive, with an agenda of his own, it would have been a small price to pay for everything he'd taught me these past few months. During all the time we'd spent together, the senior had never once mentioned Fin Shao in front of me. He'd never brought up my failed marriage, never pried into my past. With him I could finally relax, finally be myself, bold, confident, unapologetic. But with Fin Zhao's return, I knew I'd have to face the music sooner or later. Before we got married, his father made me sign a prenuptial agreement. If I get a divorce, I'll get nothing. I'll have to leave the marriage completely empty-handed. Back then I'd been naive enough to believe that Fin Shao and I shared a love that transcended material things, that I didn't care about his family's wealth or his money. And Fin Shao had sworn up and down that he'd never betray me, that he'd love me forever. Now looking back, I felt like the biggest fool in the world. Liu Song's eyes flickered with a hint of something I couldn't quite read. If you want a divorce, I'll help you. You'll get every single thing you're entitled to. Not a penny less. I couldn't figure out Liu Song's endgame, his true motives. But if helping me get a divorce from Fin Shao was part of his plan, then I was more than happy to play along. Seeing me nod in agreement, Liu Song's expression grew complicated. He sighed softly, reaching out to gently ruffle my hair. Didn't I teach you to always be on your guard? To never trust someone completely? I smiled faintly. I don't know how to repay you for everything you've done for me, senior. If it hadn't been for Liu Song, I would have long ago let the river's current carry me away, drowning in the gray, tragic ending of my once perfect fairy tale. If getting a divorce was the price I had to pay to repay his kindness, to see the truth of people's hearts clearly, then in a way, it would be the best deal I'd ever made. From now on I'd have nothing holding me back. Nothing to lose. Nothing to fear. 5. I didn't cancel my 3-day cruise vacation just because Fin Shao was coming home. Over the next few days he'd called me using one new phone number after another. His messages were a chaotic mix of anger, threats, and desperation, telling me that if I didn't come home right away, there were plenty of other women lining up to take my place as Mrs. Shao. I ignored all of them, blocking each new number as soon as it popped up on my screen. I'd come out to have a good time, to enjoy myself. The last thing I needed was to let him ruin it with his petty drama. A perfectly good vacation had been soured just by the thought of him. So annoying. Back in Haishur, Liu Song offered to drive me home, but I turned him down. The mess between Fin Shao and me was something I needed to clean up on my own. I arrived at the villa where Fin Shao and I lived together during the daytime, thinking he'd definitely be at the office at this hour. I never expected him to be home, let alone with his precious little secretary, that mistress of his. When I'd first caught him cheating, I'd felt like the world was spinning out of control, my vision blurring into darkness. I'd been so overwhelmed by grief and rage that I'd lost all reason, screaming and crying like a madwoman. But now, I folded my arms across my chest, watching them make out on the sofa with the same casual curiosity as if I were watching a movie. Though remembering that the sofa was one I'd picked out myself, one we'd sat on together for so many years, I still felt a wave of nausea wash over me. Fin Xiao must have known I was back a long time ago. He'd been waiting for me to fly off the handle to lose my mind, only to find me treating them like a sideshow. He angrily pushed his mistress away, his eyes blazing with fury as he glared at me, then froze abruptly. I'd changed a lot these past few months. My signature long straight black hair had been permed and dyed. My plain conservative light-colored dresses had been replaced with all sorts of stylish outfits. I was practically a whole new person. Fin Xiao snapped out of his daze, snarling at me. Who allowed you to dress like this? What have you been up to while I was gone? Unlike you, Mr. Xiao, I don't go around fooling around with random people. Where the hell have you been these past few days? Why are you only coming home now? I smiled faintly. I should have arrived later, it seems. My apologies for interrupting your little rendezvous with Ms. Su, Mr. Xiao. Fin Xiao's anger evaporated instantly, his eyes widening in disbelief as he stared at me. He held my gaze for a long time as if searching for any sign that I was just putting on a brave face. But all I felt was impatience. I turned and headed upstairs. You two carry on. Don't mind me. Willow Qin. Fin Xiao grabbed me by the arm. I jerked it away as if I'd touched something filthy, my voice dripping with disgust. Don't touch me. Seeing my look of pure revulsion seemed to push him over the edge. He tightened his grip, refusing to let go. What the hell is wrong with you? I raised my hand and slapped him hard across the face. The one who's gone crazy is you, Fin Xiao. Sometimes I really wonder if you've been possessed by a ghost. I never thought you could sink this low. Or was I just never really seeing the real you all along? Fin Xiao was stunned into silence, his cheeks stinging from the slap. He'd probably never imagined that his meek, obedient wife could ever hit him. Oh wait, I'd already hit him once before. Though that time the price I'd paid had been far too high. But I didn't regret it for a second. Bringing that child into this world would have only been doing it a disservice. Fin Xiao stared at me, his eyes bloodshot with rage. Aren't you afraid I'll divorce you? Afraid you'll lose your status as Mrs. Xiao? I laughed out loud. That would be the best thing that could ever happen to me. Fin Xiao looked like a cat whose tail had been stepped on, his voice rising in panic. Willow Qin, you know exactly what's written in that prenuptial agreement. If we get divorced, you'll walk away with absolutely nothing. You married me right after graduation, you've never worked a day in your life. What will you do without me? How will you survive? Willow Qin, you've already got no one else in this world. Don't push your luck too far. I'm running out of patience with you. Every word he spat was laced with contempt, piercing my heart like a knife. I could feel my whole body trembling with anger. Back in high school, I'd always been the top student in the grade, the teacher's pride, the envy of every classmate. I'd won countless competitions, bringing honor to our school time and time again. Back then, the way he'd looked at me had been full of stars. His favorite thing to say was, Willow is so amazing. She's the best girl in the whole world. After we got married, he told me, I don't want you to ever have to work hard. I'll take care of you for the rest of your life. And I'd believed him, happily staying home as a housewife for all those years. Now that same fact had become his weapon to belittle me, to gaslight me. I couldn't hold back any longer. Another slap cracked across his face. The me who ever trusted you. That was the biggest fool in the entire world. After the slap, I turned and marched straight upstairs, not wanting to lay eyes on him for a single second longer. Having been slapped twice in a row, Fin Xiao's pride was completely shattered. He roared after me. Willow Qin, I'm giving you one last chance. Apologize to me right now and I'll let this whole thing go. I didn't even bother turning my head. Fin Xiao was so furious he kicked the coffee table hard, the loud crash echoing through the room. 7. What the hell are you still doing here? Fin Xiao had been about to scream at Sun Yinyo to get out, but when he heard footsteps coming down the stairs, he suddenly changed his mind, pulling her back into his arms instead. I dragged my suitcase down the stairs, only to find the two of them locked in another embrace. Meeting his defiant, taunting gaze, I just wanted to roll my eyes. What a complete idiot. How had I ever been stupid enough to break my heart over someone like him? Stupid enough to want to kill myself over him? How had time twisted him into such a repulsive, unrecognizable monster? I'd finally figured it out these past few months. The boy who'd loved me so fiercely, who'd defied the world to be with me from high school to our wedding day, that boy was long dead. The man standing before me now was nothing more than a cheating, heartless scumbag who'd stolen his body and soul. I ignored him completely, grabbing the handle of my suitcase and heading for the door. Fin Xiao was wrong about one thing: I hadn't just been gone these past few days. I'd been staying in hotels for months now, traveling all over with Senior Song, closing deals, sealing partnerships. To me, this villa was nothing more than a golden cage. I'd had no desire to come back here ever again. I'd already rented an apartment of my own not long ago, just a short commute from the company. I'd originally planned to move straight in after the cruise, no detours. Fin Xiao caught sight of my suitcase. He immediately pushed Sun Yanyo away, striding over to block my path. "Where do you think you're going?" I replied with icy impatience. "None of your business." Fin Xiao was practically seeing red. "I'm your husband. How is that none of my business?" I let out a cold, mocking laugh. "When you were cheating on me, did you ever stop to remember that you're my husband? When you pushed me to the floor and cost me our baby? When you left me to die in that hospital room? When I tried to kill myself and all you did was lecture me, gaslight me and blame me for everything? Did any of that ever make you think about your responsibilities as my husband?" Fin Xiao's expression froze, his face twitching with annoyance. "I already told you this is just how things are in my world. You need to get used to it. Name one rich young master in Haishur who doesn't play around like this. I have to network to close deals. These things are unavoidable, part of the job. Everything I do it to support you." I closed my eyes for a second, fighting the urge to smash my suitcase over his head. Fin Xiao went on, his voice growing more self-righteous by the second. "Do you know how many times I was laughed at for chasing after you? How many people looked down on me for marrying a girl with no family background, no connections? You were never able to help me with my career, not even a little bit. Do you have any idea how hard that was for me? You're so quiet, so boring. I needed an outlet. Why can't you just be more understanding? Why do you always have to make a scene?" I'd had enough. I lifted my foot and kicked him square in the groin with all my strength. "Bastard." Watching him double over in agony, his face contorted in pain, a wave of satisfaction washed over me. Every single word he'd spoken had made me want to throw up. "Willow Chin. You stop right there." Fin Xiao clung to the sofa for support, gasping through the excruciating pain as he snarled at me. "If you dare step out that door today, we're done. We're getting a divorce. And you won't be allowed to come back." I turned around, meeting his furious gaze head-on. "Even if you didn't want a divorce, I would have asked for one. But since you're the one at fault here, cheating on me, costing me our child, don't you dare dream of making me walk away empty-handed. You'll get what's coming to you, Fin Xiao. Willow Chin. Get back here right now. I'm ordering you to come back. Do you hear me?" I tuned out Fin Xiao's hysterical screams, ignoring him like he was nothing more than a barking dog. As soon as I stepped out of the villa, I spotted a car parked by the side of the road. The window rolled down, revealing Liu Song's handsome, gentle face. He smiled at me. "It's not easy to get a taxi around here. Let me give you a ride." I didn't stand on ceremony, loading my suitcase into the back seat before sliding into the passenger seat. Liu Song handed me a folder before starting the car. I glanced at him in surprise, then opened the folder. Inside was a thick stack of documents, evidence of Fin Xiao's infidelity over the years. It turned out he'd been cheating on me less than a year after we'd gotten married. I closed my eyes, a heavy, suffocating feeling settling in my chest. No wonder the story of Cinderella and the prince always ended right after they got married. No one ever wanted to tell you what happened next. It's all in the past now. His voice was warm and deep, like a gentle spring breeze brushing against my heart. I lowered my eyes, my voice soft. "Yes. It's all in the past now. Senior. I owe you another huge debt of gratitude." Liu Song kept his eyes on the road ahead. "You know I hate it when you say things like that." I smiled faintly, silently tucking his kindness away in my heart. Liu Song spoke up again. "I've already hired the best divorce lawyer in the city for you. You're my most valuable team member now. Taking care of your problems is part of my job as your boss. Besides, the sooner you wrap up this personal business, the sooner you can get back to work and make me even more money. I knew he was only saying that to make me feel better, to take the weight off my shoulders. I nodded, accepting his kindness without hesitation. Thank you, Senior. I already owed him so much. What was one more debt? I'd find a way to repay him eventually. 9. I'd rented a cozy little apartment, just a short drive away from the company, perfect for my commute. Leo Song helped me carry my suitcase up to the door. I'd assumed he'd leave right after, but he paused, turning to me with a smile. Would you mind if I came in for a quick visit? Even though we'd been practically inseparable these past few months, Leo Song had always been the perfect gentleman, never overstepping his boundaries. Meeting his warm, gentle gaze, my heart skipped a beat. There was something different about him today, something a little more intense, a little more forward than usual. Leo Song's smile softened, sensing my hesitation. If it's inconvenient, it's fine. I cut him off, unlocking the door. It's just a bit of a mess in here. I haven't had time to unpack yet. I hope you don't mind. I stepped aside to let him in. Make yourself at home. I poured him a glass of warm water, handing it to him. Instead of sitting down, Leo Song looked at me with a concerned frown. Do you have a first aid kit? I glanced at him in alarm. Are you hurt somewhere, Senior? Leo Song sighed softly, reaching out to take my right hand, turning it palm up. I looked down in confusion, only to see that my palm was bright red and swollen. The nail on my ring finger was cracked, a tiny bead of blood oozing from the split. I barely even felt it. The last time I'd gotten my hands this bloodied had been at Fin Zhao's office, but even then the physical pain had been nothing compared to the agony in my heart. I stared at my injured hand, a bitter laugh escaping my lips. I guess his face really is as thick as a wall. Leo Song rummaged through my bag until he found the first aid kit, carefully cleaning and bandaging my wound. His voice was low, laced with concern. You're still able to laugh about it. I met his eyes, my tone light. If I don't laugh, what else am I supposed to do? Cry? I don't think you'd want to see that, would you? Leo Song finished wrapping my finger, his touch gentle and careful. I just don't want to see you get hurt. I looked away, my heart fluttering again. You really are too kind, Senior. Leo Song didn't seem to appreciate the compliment. He stayed for a little while longer, even making me a bowl of noodles before finally leaving. I stood at the door watching his car disappear down the street, before slowly closing the door behind me. There were some things he didn't need to say out loud. And some things I was better off not knowing. The divorce wasn't finalized yet. I didn't have the luxury of thinking about anything else right now. 10. I didn't rush to file for divorce right away. Instead, I sent all the evidence of Fin Zhao's infidelity straight to his father. The Zhao family was one of the most prominent, well-respected families in Haishur. The story of Fin Zhao, the wealthy young heir, marrying me, the poor, ordinary scholarship student, for true love had once been all over the news. It had earned the Zhao family countless accolades, boosting their public image and sending their company's stock prices soaring to new heights. If news of Fin Zhao's long-term infidelity ever got out, the backlash would be catastrophic. The Zhao family would lose everything they'd worked so hard to build. 10. A cornered dog will still leap over a wall in desperation. All I wanted was to get my money and a divorce. I had no desire to gamble with my life by taking on the entire Zhao family head-on, nor did I want to drag Senior Song into this mess and watch him suffer because of me. Mr. Zhao had never looked down on me from the very beginning. What he'd always wanted was a daughter-in-law from a family of equal standing, someone who could help his family's business thrive, not a penniless nobody like me. 5 million, he said, contacting me shortly after receiving the evidence. His tone was as arrogant and condescending as ever. There was a time when I'd been grateful that Fin Zhao was nothing like his father. But now I finally understood the old saying, like father, like son. Fin Zhao had just been better at hiding his true colors, and I'd been too blinded by his so-called deep love to see the truth. 5 million. I scoffed. Your son spent more than that just buying a house for his mistress. Willow Chin, don't forget your place. You're still Mrs. Zhao. If this scandal breaks, what good will it do you? Plenty of good, I shot back coolly. Fin Zhao is the one at fault here. I can sue for divorce and demand a larger share of the marital assets. But most importantly, it'll make you and Fin Zhao miserable, and that alone would be worth it to me. You're willing to divorce him? Mr. Xiao sounded genuinely shocked. In his eyes, he and his son were untouchable elites, while I was nothing but a lowly commoner. Marrying into the Xiao family should have been the honor of a lifetime for me, a blessing my ancestors must have burned incense for. I should have been clinging to them for dear life, not walking away. Do you really want a divorce? He pressed, clearly suspecting I was just bluffing, playing some cheap trick to get more money out of them. My patience was wearing thin. Either tell your son to sit down and negotiate a divorce with me properly, or I'll call my lawyer right now and hand all this evidence over to them to handle. Your choice. 50 million. That's my final offer, Willow Chin. Mr. Xiao snapped, his voice dripping with threat. Know your limits. Don't be greedy for things that don't belong to you. You said the exact same thing to me before we got married, Chairman Xiao, I retorted with a cold smile. Did that stop me from marrying your son? Oh, and I just happened to meet Chairman Chiu recently. Do you think he'd pay me more than 50 million for this little package of evidence? The Chiu and Xiao families had been bitter rivals for decades, constantly trying to outdo each other in Haishi's business circles. Lately, the Xiao group had been locked in a fierce bidding war with the Chiu group for a major national tech project. If news of Fin Zhao's infidelity broke now, the Xiao family would be kicked out of the running faster than lightning. How dare you? Mr. Xiao roared, his voice shaking with rage. I told Fin Zhao years ago that he shouldn't marry a girl from a poor family. They're all greedy, insatiable vultures. He was just blinded by his infatuation with you. I laughed, a hollow, bitter sound. Save your breath for your son, Chairman Xiao. After all, you two are cut from the same cloth, both shameless enough to cheat and then act like you've done nothing wrong. You... He sputtered, too furious to form a coherent sentence. I don't have time to waste on this nonsense. I cut him off, my tone sharp and final. Tell Fin Zhao to meet me in 1 week to discuss the divorce. No more games. 11. Who gave you permission to go out and work? The Xiao family wielded immense power in Haisha. Tracking down my whereabouts was child's play for them. It didn't even take 3 days. Fin Zhao found me at the company. I glanced at my watch, my meeting was in half an hour. Did you bring the divorce agreement? I asked flatly. I have time to sign it now. Fin Zhao's face was ashen with anger. But when his eyes fell on me, dressed in a sharp professional pantsuit, my hair pulled back neatly, exuding confidence and poise, his gaze softened, flickering with a complicated emotion he tried to hide. Willow Chin, that's enough. Stop this nonsense and come home with me, he ordered, his voice laced with frustration. Wait, you're not here to talk about the divorce? I raised an eyebrow, my tone dripping with sarcasm. Then this conversation is a waste of my time. I turned to walk away, but Fin Zhao reached out and grabbed my arm, yanking me back. How long are you going to keep this up? When will you stop being so stubborn? I felt a wave of disgust wash over me at his touch. I spun around and slapped him hard across the face, my voice cold as ice. I told you not to touch me. You disgust me. Fin Zhao stared at me in shock, clearly stung by my words. Why have you become like this? What happened to the gentle, loving girl I married? I raised my hand, ready to slap him again. How could someone be this shameless? Your father should have told you everything by now, I said, my voice cutting like a knife. All I want is a divorce agreement that's fair to me. Other than that, do me a favor and stay out of my life. You're incredibly annoying, in case you haven't noticed. Fin Zhao could see that my impatience, my hatred was real. A flicker of hurt crossed his face. He probably couldn't wrap his head around how the woman who'd loved him so deeply just a few months ago, who'd even tried to kill herself over him, could now look at him with such cold, unfeeling eyes. Willow. We've been together for so many years. Do you really have to be like this? He pleaded, his voice cracking. I looked at him, my expression devoid of any emotion. Fin Zhao, how dare you mention our years together? After everything you've done? I already told you. This is how things work in my world. All my brother's wives accept it, why can't you? Do you really have to humiliate us like this? To make a scene and ruin everything? Fin Zhao ranted, repeating the same tired excuses over and over again, as if he was trying to convince himself more than me. I let out a sharp, mocking laugh. Fine. I'll admit I can't fit into your high-class circle. Happy now? I'm quitting. Is that what you want to hear? Fin Zhao, I'm giving you 1 week, I said, my voice deadly serious. Either we part ways amicably, or I'll drag this whole scandal into the sunlight and let everyone see what a monster you are. I've got nothing to lose. The choice is yours. I turned on my heel and walked away, refusing to look back at him even once. I will never divorce you, Willow Cheen, he shouted after me, his voice echoing through the hallway. You can forget about it. 12. I was so annoyed. Beyond annoyed. Fin Xiao became my shadow, showing up at my office building every morning to block me, waiting for me at the company gate every night when I left. He'd follow me around like a lost dog, spouting the same pathetic lines about how much he loved me, how sorry he was, how we could fix our marriage. I ignored him every single time, walking past him without so much as a glance. Willow, please just listen to me, he begged, stepping in front of me to block my path one evening, his eyes red-rimmed from lack of sleep. I'll do anything you want. I'll fire Sunyinyo. I'll never see her again. Just come home with me. I'll cook for you your favorite braised pork ribs, remember? Once upon a time, Fin Xiao would have eaten instant noodles for a month just to save up enough money to buy me a single meal at a fancy restaurant. He'd braved the cold rain to stand outside my dorm, just to hand me a warm cup of milk tea. He'd never cared about his status as a wealthy young master back then. He'd been willing to do anything to make me happy. That's why I'd thought he was different from all the other rich boys I'd met. But now I knew the truth. He'd just been enjoying the thrill of conquering the poor, shy scholarship student, the challenge of winning over a girl who'd initially rejected him. Or maybe he'd just been using me to rebel against his father. Either way, that naive, loving boy was long gone. Fin Xiao, do you have some kind of masochistic streak? I sneered, stopping to look at him for the first time all week. You treat me like garbage when I'm nice to you, but the second I slap you and call you names, you're suddenly begging for my attention? Are you that much of a pathetic loser? I'd gotten so good at insulting him these days. When dealing with a scumbag like him, there was no point in holding back. Fin Xiao bit his lip, his jaw tightening. Willow. Can't we just stop fighting? Senior. Just then a familiar car pulled up beside us, and the window rolled down to reveal Liu Song's warm, smiling face. He acted as if he hadn't even noticed Fin Xiao standing there, his gaze softening when it landed on me. Let me drive you home. I met his eyes, a flicker of helplessness crossing my face. I'd specifically told him not to get involved in my messy divorce. Before I could say anything, Fin Xiao exploded with rage, his face turning crimson. Who the hell is this guy? It's none of your business, I replied coolly, stepping toward Liu Song's car. Willow Cheen. Don't you dare forget that you're still my wife. Fin Xiao roared, his voice cracking with jealousy. Is this why you're acting like this? Because of him? Did you cheat on me with this man? I felt a surge of disgust so strong it made my stomach churn. I pulled my arm out of his grasp, my voice icy with contempt. Fin Xiao, I'm swamped with work right now. Can't you be a little more reasonable and just get the divorce over with? Senior Song is just my business partner. Your constant paranoia is getting really old. I'd thrown his own words right back at him word for word. Once upon a time I'd believed every single lie he'd told me. When he'd come home late, reeking of perfume, I'd convinced myself he was just working overtime. When he'd snapped at me for asking too many questions, I'd blamed myself for being too clingy, for not understanding his stress. I'd swallowed my pride and my tears, choosing to forgive him over and over again. But my tolerance and compromise had never made him feel the slightest bit guilty. Instead, he'd taken advantage of my kindness, pushing me further and further until I'd finally hit my breaking point. He'd thought I could never live without him, that I'd beg for his forgiveness no matter what he did. Fin Xiao stared at me, his face draining of all color. My words had hit him like a punch to the gut. These were the exact same things he'd said to me countless times before, but now the roles were reversed. He reached out again, grabbing my wrist tightly, his knuckles white with rage. We're going home. Now. Fin Xiao, are you insane? I yelled, trying to yank my arm free. His grip was like a vice, hurting me. 13. Liu Song wasted no time. He jumped out of the car and strode over, yanking Fin Xiao's hand off my wrist with a firm, decisive motion. He stood in front of me, shielding me from Fin Xiao's angry glare, his usually warm and gentle voice now cold as steel. What exactly do you think you're doing to my business partner, Mr. Xiao? Fin Xiao's eyes blazed with hatred as he stared at Liu Song. He was convinced this man was the reason I'd changed, the reason I was ruining their marriage. Stay out of this. This is between me and my wife, he snarled, shoving Liu Song hard in the chest. Liu Song didn't budge an inch. She clearly doesn't want to go with you. Haven't you heard of marital coercion, Mr. Xiao? It's illegal. Shut up. You're just a meddling outsider who's trying to steal my wife. Fin Xiao roared, completely losing his temper. He swung his fist at Liu Song's face, his movements brutal and unrestrained, the same way he'd fought in high school back when he was the campus bully. Liu Song was ready for him. He dodged the punch easily, then threw a fist of his own, hitting Fin Xiao square in the jaw. The two tall, well-built men grappled with each other, exchanging blows as passers-by stopped to stare. I stood there, stunned for a moment before panic flooded my veins. Stop fighting. Both of you, stop it right now. Fin Xiao was a ruthless fighter, having grown up brawling on the streets. Liu Song, on the other hand, was a refined, gentle businessman in my eyes. I was terrified he'd get seriously hurt. You bastard. How dare you lay your hands on my wife? Fin Xiao shouted, landing a punch on Liu Song's shoulder. You think you can take her from me? I'll make sure you're run out of Haishur. You'll never be able to do business here again. Ha! Liu Song laughed, dodging another punch and landing a solid hit on Fin Xiao's ribs. The Qing dynasty collapsed a long time ago, Mr. Xiao. Get over yourself. You had her, you had the woman you claimed to love more than anything, and you chose to hurt her. You're the one who doesn't deserve her. To Liu Song, I was the bright, shining moon he'd admired from afar for years, the girl he'd never dared to approach, too afraid of overstepping his bounds. And Fin Xiao had thrown that precious moon away like it was nothing. Stop it. Please stop fighting. I screamed, my heart pounding in my chest. I grabbed my handbag and swung it at Fin Xiao, hitting him hard on the back. Let go of him. He's not worth it. I used the distraction to yank Liu Song away from Fin Xiao, pushing him toward his car. Hurry. Let's go. Don't waste your time on this lunatic. Fin Xiao stood there watching us, his face twisted with disbelief and heartbreak. His eyes were bloodshot, tears streaming down his face as he screamed my name over and over again, his voice cracking with agony. Willow. Willow Qin. Come back. I love you. I'm sorry. I'll change. I promise I'll change. But I didn't look back. I jumped into Liu Song's car and slammed the door shut, yelling at him to drive away as fast as possible. Fin Xiao chased after the car, running as fast as his legs could carry him, his cries echoing in the night until we finally drove out of sight. I took Liu Song back to my apartment to clean up his wounds. Are you hurt anywhere else? Do we need to go to the hospital to get an X-ray? I fretted, gently dabbing antiseptic on the cut on his jaw. Fin Xiao had been a ruthless fighter in high school. He'd always fought dirty, aiming for the most vulnerable spots. Liu Song, who looked like such a gentle, refined gentleman to me, had clearly been at a disadvantage. Liu Song chuckled, wincing slightly as I pressed the gauze to his wound. You don't have much faith in me, do you, Junior? I smiled sheepishly, my fingers moving with practiced ease as I bandaged his hand. He's a total thug. You're different, you're civilized. Liu Song laughed again, a warm, rich sound. You'd be surprised, Junior. I got into my fair share of fights back in high school too. I shook my head, unconvinced. You shouldn't have gotten involved, Senior. This is my mess to clean up. Liu Song's smile faded, his expression turning serious. I'm sorry if I made things difficult for you. Difficult? No, I said quickly, avoiding his gaze. I was just worried you'd get hurt. The Xiao family has a lot of power in Haishur. You're an outsider, an investor from another city. It's never a good idea to fight a local dragon. If the Xiao family decided to retaliate against his company, all the hard work he'd put in these past few months would go up in smoke. It wasn't worth it, not for me. Liu Song looked at me, his eyes warm and intense, and reached out to brush a strand of hair behind my ear. Hearing you say that makes it all worth it. Even if I lose everything, even if my company goes bankrupt, I'd do it all again to protect you. I felt my face heat up and I quickly turned away, busying myself with putting the first aid kit away. Don't say things like that, Senior. If your company goes under, I'll be out of a job too. Liu Song laughed, but there was no humor in his voice. He reached out and gently wrapped his fingers around my wrist, stopping me from moving away. His touch was warm, his gaze sincere. Junior. Once this divorce is finalized, have you ever thought about moving to Shenzhen? It's a much bigger, more open city. You'd have so many more opportunities there, a chance to build a career that's truly yours, without the Shao family breathing down your neck. He paused, his thumb brushing lightly over my pulse, his voice softening. I'll be honest with you. I like you. More than just a business partner, more than just a friend. I froze, my heart skipping a beat. I stared at him, my mind racing. Liu Song was everything a woman could ask for, handsome, kind, successful, gentle. He'd saved me when I was at my lowest, helped me rebuild my life, taught me how to stand on my own 2 feet again. But I couldn't. Not now. Not ever. I'd been burned too badly by love. Once bitten, twice shy. I was terrified of opening my heart to someone again, of getting hurt all over. Senior. You're a great guy, I said quietly, pulling my wrist away gently, my voice trembling slightly. But you deserve someone better than me. Someone who can give you the love you deserve. I'm not ready for a relationship, not now, maybe not ever. Liu Song was a smart man. He heard the rejection in my words loud and clear. The light in his eyes dimmed a little, but he nodded, forcing a small, understanding smile. I never meant to pressure you, Junior. I hate seeing you stuck here, surrounded by people who want to hurt you. Shenzhen would be a fresh start for you, a chance to leave all this pain behind. I nodded slowly, my mind made up. He was right. I was no match for the Shao family. I couldn't fight them head-on. Sometimes the smartest move was to retreat, to step back, take a breath and start over somewhere new. Fighting a losing battle was never worth it. 15 Over the next few days, Fin Shao went to extreme lengths to force his way back into my life. He showed up at my office every morning to drive me to work, bombarded me with bouquets of flowers and expensive breakfasts and lunches, and followed me around like a lost puppy, just like he had back in high school. But I wasn't the shy, insecure girl I'd been back then. All I felt now was intense disgust. His desperate attempts to win me back felt like a series of slaps to the face of the naive, love-struck version of myself who'd once adored him unconditionally. I finally had enough and called Mr. Shao directly, telling him to rein in his son. Mr. Shao exploded with rage on the phone, screaming insults at me. You're nothing but a curse. A disaster. I laughed coldly, cutting him off. The feeling's mutual. I hung up the phone without another word. The next day Fin Shao didn't show up at my office. True to his word, Mr. Shao sent someone to deliver the divorce agreement to me, along with a note. Fin Shao would meet me at the Civil Affairs Bureau on Monday to finalize our divorce. I was more than satisfied with the terms of the agreement. If I'd had my way, I would have rushed to the bureau and signed the papers that very day. Late at night, I was jolted awake by a clap of thunder. The rain was pouring outside, drumming loudly against the windows. I rolled over, ready to drift back to sleep, when my phone lit up with an incoming call. I squinted at the screen. It was Fin Shao. I'd temporarily unblocked his number to avoid any last-minute complications with the divorce. What could he possibly want at this hour? Reluctantly, I answered the call, trying to keep the irritation out of my voice. Do you have any idea what time it is? Willow. His voice was hoarse and shaky, thick with rain and something that sounded like desperation. I don't have anywhere else to go. I'm outside your building on the floor above you. Please. Let me come up. Get lost. I hung up immediately, blocked his number again and pulled the covers over my head, determined to ignore him. Did he really think we were still those innocent college sweethearts, madly in love, willing to forgive anything for each other? Once I would have felt sorry for him. Once I would have rushed to his side without a second thought. But that girl was long gone. 16 The next morning when I left my apartment for work, there was no sign of Fin Shao outside. I didn't care if he'd been putting on an act and left in the middle of the night, or if someone had dragged him away. It was none of my business anymore. What I didn't expect, however, was for one of Fin Zhao's so-called best friends to storm into my office that afternoon, demanding to get justice for his buddy. Willow Qin, do you even have a heart? He shouted, slamming his fist on my desk. Do you know Fin almost died last night? He collapsed outside your building and hasn't woken up yet. Everyone in our circle plays around. Why are you being so unreasonable? So stubborn? Fin did everything for you. He gave up his entire life to marry you. And this is how you repay him. You were never good enough for him, never good enough for the Shao family. You should be on your knees thanking us for letting you marry into our world. I took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. Arguing with this entitled jerk was a waste of my time. Are you done? If you're finished, please leave. You're disturbing my employees. Willow Chin, sir, if you don't leave voluntarily, I'll have no choice but to call security, Liu Song said, appearing in the doorway with a cold, unsmiling expression. The man scoffed, his eyes narrowing as he looked between me and Liu Song. So this is why you're so confident, huh? You've already found yourself a new sugar daddy. I grabbed Liu Song's arm before he could lose his temper and punch the guy. Sun Yenyo used to be your girlfriend, didn't she? I said, my voice low and dangerous. If you don't want Finn to find out you slept with his mistress, or for you and your best friend to become the talk of the town, I suggest you get out of here right now, before I make a phone call that'll ruin both your lives. The man's face paled, all his bluster evaporating instantly. He mumbled a weak threat under his breath and scurried out of the office like a frightened mouse. Liu Song turned to me, his expression softening with concern. Are you okay? I shook my head, letting out a bitter laugh. I'm so sorry, senior. I've dragged you into this mess with all these annoying pests. Liu Song patted my shoulder gently, his voice warm and reassuring. You don't need to apologize to me. What are friends for? 17 Fin Zhao's life or death didn't matter to me anymore. On Monday morning, I showed up at the Civil Affairs Bureau right on time. Fin Zhao was there too, looking like a ghost of his former self. His face was pale and gaunt, his eyes bloodshot and sunken as if he'd just recovered from a severe illness. I glanced at him indifferently and turned toward the entrance. Let's go. Willow. Fin Zhao's Adam's apple bobbed up and down as he spoke, his voice trembling. I almost died, you know. I let out a cold, dismissive, oh. Your family is rich. I'm sure you'll find a way to get better. Even if you didn't, it wouldn't be my problem. Just like he'd been so cold and indifferent when I tried to kill myself by slitting my wrists. Fin Zhao closed his eyes in despair. What goes around comes around. He was finally experiencing the karmic retribution he deserved. He didn't try to stop me or beg for forgiveness again. Wordlessly, he followed me inside and signed the divorce papers. A month later, he showed up to pick up the final divorce certificate, looking even thinner and more broken than before. He stared at the certificate in his hand, his eyes glassy with tears. I still remember how happy I was when we first got our marriage license. I thought my life was finally perfect. Tears streamed down his face as he looked at me, his voice cracking with heartbreak. Willow. How did we end up here? I looked back at him, my voice flat and emotionless. You should ask yourself that question. I turned to leave, pausing for a moment to add, I'd have to be out of my mind to ever consider getting back together with someone like you. Willow, I understand why you're scared, Liu Song said softly, stepping closer to me. But you can't let your ex-husband's mistakes make you give up on love entirely. Please. Just give me a chance to prove myself to you. He looked at me with such a wounded, helpless expression that I almost felt sorry for him. Senior. I started, my resolve wavering for a split second. But I quickly pulled myself together, forcing myself to stay strong. Willow, I've loved you for years, so many years, Liu Song blurted out, his voice thick with emotion. I've never dated anyone else, never looked at another woman. I've just been waiting. Hoping against hope that one day I might have a chance with you. His confession hit me like a ton of bricks. I was touched, truly I was. But I was also terrified. Maybe you only think you like me because you can't have me, I said quietly, avoiding his gaze. Liu Song's face fell, his eyes filling with hurt. Do you really think I'm as bad as Fin Zhao? I closed my eyes, my heart aching. I knew I was being cruel, but I had to protect myself. I can't give you what you want, senior, I said firmly, opening my eyes and meeting his gaze. If you're really set on this, the only thing I can offer is a physical relationship. Nothing more. Can you accept that? Maybe if he had me, he'd realize I wasn't worth the wait. Maybe he'd get bored and move on, sparing me the pain of another failed relationship. After everything I'd been through, I had no desire to love again. But that didn't mean I had to deny myself physical intimacy entirely. I was independent now, I had money, a career and my freedom. I didn't need a man to complete me, but I also didn't want to be alone forever. Liu Song stared at me in silence, clearly stunned by my proposal. He let out a low chuckle, shaking his head. I guess I did too good a job of teaching you to be bold and independent." He reached out and cupped my face in his hands, his eyes blazing with passion. "Fine. A physical relationship it is. But there's one condition: you're mine and mine alone. No one else." Before I could respond, he leaned down and kissed me hungrily, his lips crashing against mine. It was nothing like his gentle, polite demeanor. His kiss was fierce and passionate, filled with years of pent-up longing and desire. For a moment I felt like I was drowning in his love, losing myself in the heat of the moment. Liu Song was determined to show me that there were still good men in the world, that not all relationships had to end in heartbreak. Fin Zhao's extra chapter 1. Still don't know why I cheated on Willow. I'd loved her so fiercely when I'd chased her wholeheartedly without any hesitation. I'd been over the moon when we'd gotten married. I truly wanted to be a good husband, to build a happy little family with her. But she'd been so obedient, so gentle. She'd hung on my every word, putting my needs above her own. I'd grown bored, so bored. There was no challenge, no excitement in our relationship anymore. Every time I hung out with my friends, they'd tease me about marrying a commoner girl, about how I'd tamed myself for love. When I'd rejected other women's advances, they'd called me a henpecked husband, a joke. At first their words hadn't bothered me. But slowly they'd started to eat away at me. Then one night I'd gotten drunk and slept with my secretary. I knew in that moment that I'd crossed a line I could never come back from. At first I'd felt guilty, so guilty. I'd showered Willow with expensive gifts and empty apologies, trying to make up for my mistake. But the more I looked at her, the same gentle, unassuming woman she'd always been, with no ambitions of her own, just clinging to me, the more annoyed I'd become. I'd started cheating more and more frequently, growing bolder and more careless. But I'd never intended for her to find out. I'd never wanted to lose her. She'd been my safe haven, my anchor. After a night of partying and fooling around, I'd always loved coming home to her quiet, peaceful presence. But she'd found out anyway. I'd never seen her so angry, so broken. I'd panicked and pushed her away, and then I'd watched in horror as blood began to pool between her legs. I'd been terrified, filled with remorse. But I'd been too much of a coward to face her. My friends had encouraged me to teach her a lesson, to show her her place. They told me that women needed to be put in their place sometimes, that I shouldn't let her walk all over me. I'd been a fool and listened to them. When I'd heard she'd tried to kill herself, I'd felt a twisted mix of guilt and pride. Part of me had been relieved that she loved me enough to die for me, that she couldn't live without me. So I'd listened to my friends, again, and ignored her for months, thinking she'd come crawling back to me, begging for forgiveness. It wasn't until she stopped calling, stopped texting, stopped caring altogether that I'd finally woken up and realized I'd made the biggest mistake of my life. I'd rushed back to Haishur, only to find that she'd moved out of our villa and started a new life without me. Willow had changed. She'd become strong, confident, and independent. The adoration and love in her eyes had been replaced by cold, unbridled hatred. But the more she pushed me away, the more I'd wanted her back. The love I'd buried deep inside me had resurfaced, stronger than ever. I'd chased her, begged her, even gotten sick and collapsed outside her apartment building, all in the hope that she'd take pity on me and give me another chance. But she'd never looked back. And then I'd gotten the news. I'd tested positive for HIV. Haha. What perfect karma. I'd played with love, with people's hearts, and now love was playing me right back. The universe had a twisted sense of humor, that was for sure. We got divorced. I watched her break into a radiant smile as she clutched the divorce certificate, then climb into another man's car and head toward a bright future, leaving me behind, trapped in the dark, desolate past, my heart feeling as if it had been torn to shreds, throbbing with a raw, bloody pain. I knew this was what I deserved. I had lost her forever, the girl who had once loved me more than anything in the world. Later, when she married Liu Song, she didn't send me an invitation. Of course she didn't. She probably never wanted to lay eyes on me again for the rest of her life. But I still went to the wedding anyway, sneaking in like a stranger. Even if all I could do was catch a glimpse of her from afar, seeing her smile brighter than I had ever seen it, watching her find happiness once more, that would be enough for me. Then I could finally close my eyes and walk toward death in peace.